Welcome back. I've read some of your comments. Yes, I read almost every single one, so don't hesitate to ask anything, but I've noticed most of you are struggling with being the killer, which is quite understandable because it's just you versus an entire team of survivors, and being the killer is not really an easy job to do, especially if you're new to the game. That's why I today will show you the only guide you need to maximize your chances of winning as the killer and how you can counter some of these survivors' abilities. So let's begin. First, and I think a very important aspect, is you cannot let these survivors work peacefully. Don't let them do the generators, or else you will have less time to control the game and kill everybody. Now, don't go to every single generator and camp there, like that's a waste of time. But if you see somebody working on one, it's best to give them a friendly reminder that they're not allowed to do the generators, or maybe not so friendly. Secondly, always try to focus on one survivor at a time. Typically, at the start of the round, you want to go after supports like Elliot or Taff because they're the ones that cause you the most trouble and can heal other teammates. But if the sentinels are too annoying or they get in your way a lot, you can kill them first, I guess, or punish them if they get too close to you. That also works. Don't let them distract you. Now, third and the most important aspect, you need to have good stamina management, which is easier said than done, especially if you're up against 8 people. Try to always take the shortest path from A to B or cut them off if there's a shorter way. That's also very important. And as always, don't reach your stamina because you know there's a huge wind up. Remember, survivors are not the only ones who can fake their movement. You can also as well fake your movement and use that to your advantage. Instead of constant sprinting, you could also try using short bursts to close gaps quickly or surprise them. Works best against survivors that have higher ping than average. Now, the most challenging part is playing against someone who can manage their stamina pretty well and can juke. And as for this is where you need to utilize your abilities to either trap, map control, or shorten gaps quickly. To counter survivors who juke, instead of relying on predicting where they are going next, just get close to them where you can hit them and stop sprinting for a second and see what they do. Most of the times the survivors can just do one fake and after that they run into the other direction, or they don't run at all, trying to fake you. Some pros can do double or triple fakes, but that's rare scenarios. By the way, I will talk about how to juke in my next video and teach you how to do it efficiently, so you might want to subscribe to not miss out on the opportunity. Anyways, another important aspect are hitboxes. Do me a favor real quick, go in Forsaken, then go into settings and turn on visible attack hitboxes. This will help you by a lot. I actually don't know how anybody can play without this setting. Anyways, once you have it on, you'll notice that your hitbox is actually kind of small. I mean, it's okay, but if you move quickly or rotate while hitting, you can do something called a flick. And as you can see, the hitbox will be much bigger than the normal hitbox. This is also a small counter to survivors that can juke. Alright, now that I got you covered with the basics and you know how to play as a killer efficiently, let's take a look at tips and tricks for specific killers so I can help you even more. Starting with now, Jason is by far the most simple killer, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Can also be a bad thing, especially for beginners. You see, because Jason only has close range melee attacks, he has to rely heavily on his stamina management, which a lot of beginners lack most of the times, but over time you'll get better and you'll have more game sense. But here are a few tips I can give. First of all, only use Gashing Wound when the target is not moving. Best example is to sneak up to a survivor who's doing a generator, which works most of the time pretty well because Jason has a small terror radius. Don't use it on targets that are moving, it's way too inconsistent. Use Raging Pace when you're about to use your stamina, as it gives you above average speed and a dash that can close gaps very quickly. But you can also use it to avoid getting stunned, for example right as a survivor is about to hit you. Use Behead when you and the survivor have very low stamina, as it gives you a slight speed boost kinda similar to the dash from Raging Pace but weaker. Or just use it if you know you can close the gap. Also use it to hit a sentinel if you don't want to get stunned or you're simply annoyed of it, as it gives helpless for 14 seconds. By the way, for some reason you can also hit survivors through walls with the dash from Raging Pace. I don't know why, must be a bug probably, but use that to your advantage. They haven't fixed this yet, like in ages. Can be pretty useful. That's pretty much it for Jason. He's by far the most simple killer in the game. I mean, you can win with Jason without even using your abilities. He's a killer heavily focused on stamina management, and if you have good stamina management, which you will be better at over time, then you have no problem. Next is Coolkit, and some might say he's the most beginner-friendly killer in the game, because he has first of all very fast attacks, almost instantaneous, plus some abilities that makes him less dependent on stamina management. First of all, by far the hardest thing to do as Coolkit is hitting your Corrupt Nature. I struggle too sometimes because, well, it's pretty slow and has a small hitbox. And I mean, come on, it's so easy to dodge. But anyways, if you want to use it, try to predict where the target is going next or get the survivor to low stamina. And then use it so they don't have any stamina left to evade. Or use it when the target is moving and you're close enough to the target. Works sometimes if the survivor doesn't have a quick reaction time. Or also you can use it to punish survivors doing generators if they're far away. Now as for walk speed, alright. And I see so many cool kid players struggle so bad and it can be fixed so easily. First of all, don't use walk speed alright if the target is far away. It's pretty inconsistent, only works sometimes. Please don't. This way you'll never hit the survivor, it's so predictable and the survivors can dodge so easily. Only exception is if the survivor is going through a tight space or cramped area where you can actually know that you're gonna hit him. Instead, you always want to use if you're like really near the survivor. Because walk speed override has quite a big hitbox, so this way you have way higher chance of landing a hit. Again, you can try getting the survivor to low stamina, this way you have an even higher chance of landing it. Also what's interesting, there's something called the slide tech. Basically, if you go up against a wall or an obstacle at a certain angle and use walk speed alright, you will go pretty fast, so use it to your advantage to surprise survivors or close gaps quickly. Now as for pizza delivery, there isn't really much to say, just use it anytime you can, whenever the cooldown is gone. It's pretty useful, you can corner survivors with it, or generally have more map control. Only text for pizza delivery is spawning a minion for the wall where you get like really close to the wall and use the ability, this way the minion will spawn the other side, and climbing on top of your minion to reach the survivor or something, but you'll rarely use this in a real game scenario. But maybe, just maybe, this is gonna be useful to you. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because John Doe is a killer where you're gonna have to actually use your brain. Yeah, sorry, I hate to break it to you, just chasing after survivors is not gonna be enough. You're gonna actually have to strategically utilize your abilities for map control. That's right, map control. As John Doe, you can place obstacles, so let's take a look at them. Let's take a look at the digital footprint first. You might think the best place to place those might be like at choke points or something, and you know, you wouldn't be really wrong, but every map is different and some don't even have those choke points. But something that every map does have are generators. Just place those traps in your generators and it works so well, I don't know why many don't do this. First of all, you're denying the progress the survivors are doing by slowing them down or stopping them from doing generators. But also you get a nice speed boost when you're somewhere else because somebody sacrificed himself. Trust me, this works so well, and if the survivors don't do the generators, that's also good, then you have plenty of time to win the round. Now one of the more complicated abilities are spikes, and most struggle hitting survivors with them. Now I can't directly influence you to get better at aiming with your spikes, as this is something you get better at over time the more you play, but I can give you a few small tips. If you want to hit a survivor through a wall or just want to track where the survivor is and have your eyes on him, use 404 error and immediately use spikes afterwards. This way you have a way better idea of where the survivor is. Alternatively, you can also trick the survivor by aiming your spikes away and then into them with shift lock again. This way you can surprise them and have a better sight of where they are, as the spikes aren't blocking your sight. Or you can play mind games with the survivors and pretend like you're aiming at somebody else to then switching the target with shift lock. There's so many countless ways to implement spikes. But if you don't have good aim, don't worry, you can still use your spikes to trap survivors and close gaps or prevent them from escaping. This also works pretty well. And if you combine both of those traps, you have a deadly trap that almost nobody can escape. Alright, now we reach the most complicated killer in the game, or rather not complicated, but the most demanding one, because he's not easy to use. I mean, his abilities are pretty simple, it's just aiming with them is pretty difficult, especially from a big distance, so let's break it down. First of all, use mass infection to punish survivors who do the generators from a distance, but this is most of the times too predictable because of the sound cue, so instead load into the game, wait a few seconds like 5 or 10, and then use unstable eye to locate the survivors, and then use entanglement, and then use mass infection. This way you're way less predictable and you'll hit the target 80% of the time and you'll do some pretty solid damage. When you use mass infection, survivors will most of the time fake the direction where they're going. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, just try it out. And if you see they're faking it, use mass infection in the opposite direction as well next time. Now entanglement doesn't really work well from a big distance since it's so predictable and not really easy to hit. So instead use your unstable eye for speed 1 and close the gap and chase them until they have low stamina. That way you have a way higher chance of landing it when you're near them. Use the Rejuvenate the Rotten ability only when 2 players are left or in last man standing. It's just a difference of 1 survivor anyways. They're quite nice because first of all they do some damage I guess, but it's also a good way to track where the survivors are. But you can also sacrifice those minions to run at the survivors at Mach 3 speed. If you're good enough, you can first hit the survivor with Entanglement first, as it gives you speed 2, and then kill one of your minions to get the speed 3 almost instantly. That's really all I could help you with, to be honest. 1x is just a killer that is purely relying on high skill and good aim, plus some game sense. One very important thing to keep in mind, 1x is by far the slowest killer in the game, so you have to use your abilities, otherwise it's too difficult to catch up with the survivor. And for that you generally need some good aim, so 1x is the last killer you would want to try out if you're a beginner. By the way, here's a few tips on how to counter certain survivors. If you see Taft Strip Mine, just run into it and hit it. It will just give you subspace, which makes your screen slightly darker or pink I guess. You can counter Noob's late skin potion by either using Gashing Wound at the very last second with Raging Pace for some extra damage, or as 1x use Entanglement at the last second and hit with Mass Infection up close. You could also try using John Doe's Digital Footprint, but that works every then and now. As 1x you can also punish guests that miss their block by hitting the Entanglement and Close Mass Infection combo, or with Gashing Wound of course. And also instead of immediately hitting them, just chase them for a bit and block bait until they fall for it. If Dusukar is shielding somebody, you can scare them by going in their direction for a quick second and then go back to your initial target. I mean, it works sometimes I guess. That's everything I had for today. If you got any questions left or you have any other tips that I might have forgotten, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support me and see even more cool guides like this. By the way, join the Discord server, it's pretty cool there. To not miss out on anything important or to ask me something or even join one of my tournaments in the future. I'm thinking of doing that soon. Have a great day.